Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, Ben covers results of our test plots for early, mid, and late maturities of Merschman Seeds soybeans. Turk talks about the variability and performance of the planter and how that can affect your yield at harvest time. Joe covers different characteristics of seed coats on Enlist E3 soybeans.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have our regulars back. We have Turk and we have Ben. Ben's got a lot of papers in front of him. You must be looking at data. What do you got?
Yep, so this is all of our plots that we have in as of this Friday. So we'll continue to update our viewers as we get stuff in, but I kind of wanted to talk about what we have. You know, if we have products that always land in the top third of our plots, because our plots aren't replicated, that typically gives us a look at what products can handle variability, because we have areas that have been really dry, we've had areas that have been really wet, we've had a lot of anomaly situations this year, and what we really want is our products to be very widely adapted, and with that wide adaptation we don't usually see fails out in the field because these products have been tested in a variety of environments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the top 3 winners out of each one of the plots, and you may hear some of the same names over and over with some of our new products. So
what maturity you got to start with?
Yep, so I have these broken down in from early, mids, and lates, and that goes from our 1.2 maturity is our earliest to about a 2.5, 2.6 range. Then I have some 2.6 to 4.0, and then I got a couple plots from the south where we're a little bit slower on the plots coming in from the south, but we'll have a lot more of those as things roll on. So our northern plots are as such: Chickasaw, Cheyenne, Osage, Cheyenne, Chickasaw, Neptune, Chickasaw, Cheyenne, Cheyenne, Experimental 1.7, Experimental 1.5, Apache, Cheyenne, Cheyenne, Chippewa, Mohawk, Cheyenne, Neptune, Mercury, Cheyenne, Saturn, Chippewa, Apache, McKinley, Chickasaw. So we're pretty proud of that new Cheyenne that's rolling.
I would say that's been pretty consistent this year in the strip trials.
Yep. So now we're going into the mids. We got Kennedy, Denver, Austin, Kennedy, McKinley, Jefferson, Kennedy, Monroe, Austin, Kennedy, Monroe, Eisenhower, Austin, Denver. We got some new experimentals. We got 2 different 3.6s. So we got an experimental 3.6, Kennedy, experimental 4.3, experimental 3.6, Kennedy, experimental 3.9. Our McKinley won a
trait plot.
Multi-trait plot, multiple brand plot at 64 over in Illinois. We got Eisenhower, Austin, McKinley, Austin, Kennedy, Monroe, Kennedy, Monroe, McKinley, Arthur, McKinley, Mohawk. A lot of Kennedy, Monroe, McKinleys, very strong products there. And then a couple of our southern plots here. We have Memphis, Austin, Norfolk. So our Memphis is our new 4.6. We're pretty excited about that product, and our Norfolk's our new 4.3. We have Atlanta, Norfolk, Monroe.
Yeah, and that 3.6 that you're talking about, we're ready to launch it next year in big acres if all the data comes in as consistent as what we're seeing so far.
Yep, seed production field came off a little bit above 80 bushel an acre, I believe, and the grower is really excited about it. It's probably going to be one of our highest seed production fields this year. So no shortage of seed for next year on a full launch for sure.
Good. In general, quality of beans are coming in pretty good this year. Looks like germs are going to be okay. I mean, we're not, we still have more germs to come in, but I know we've had 100% bin germ so far. So that's encouraging. So we think everything's going to be fine. I know that the supply chain and all the issues that we see out there, it's got everybody all nervous and everything. No problem here at Merschman Seeds on our supply chain. So you're going to be able to get all the seed that you want and get the varieties you want.
And get it delivered.
Yep. So, that's an interesting thing, Turk, just a little sidebar there about, I saw a study from MIT that said if each truck in the United States would just have 15 minutes less wait time, there would be no truck driver shortage and no truck shortage. So here our government's going after to try to figure out how to get more trucks on the road and how to get more drivers, when really they should be encouraging folks to get the trucks unloaded and loaded faster. We're headed in the wrong direction.
And then with the trucking regulations, they're still on the clock while they're waiting most of the time.
so it limits their amount of driving time. Yeah, so many times when you look at a problem and you think the problem is really easy to solve, it's really something else that's really causing the problem. So it's the same way in agriculture too. I mean, you look at yields, you look at variables, and that leads real well into what you have to say today, right, Turk, about variables?
Yeah, so Clinton Griffith put out an article late last week. He interviewed Missy Bauer from, she is a Farm Journal field agronomist and owner of B&M Crop Consulting in Michigan. But she put out an article. It's a really good time of the year. If you get a rain and you can't get in the field, go out and do 1/1000th of an acre on your planter, the width of your planter. Pull all those ears out, lay them out, and we'll post this article.
And there's actually a video where she talks about it.
There's a video, but it was really interesting to look at the variance across the planter on all of those ears laid out. It's a really good visual on the performance of your planter. Now I know this is probably everybody's saying, why are we talking about planters this time of year? But this is the time of year to look at that visual of planter performance, and she does a really good job explaining the difference. If you could get all of your planter to perform the same all the way across, it would up yield dramatically, and I think that's critical.
From row to row, I mean, when she laid the ears out, and you know, she had several rows that were perfect, and then she had several rows that were not perfect, and then you factor how much yield reduction you're getting from that one row across that whole farm. Yeah. It's pretty enlightening. I think it's a great thing to look at now, and then plan to make sure you have your planter planting at the right depth, the right spacing. Because some of the yield problems you may be incurring or seeing right now are nothing to do with the soil or with the rainfall. It could be something to do with your planter.
There's something on those rows that needs to get needs attention, needs improvement, and so I'm sure they thought they had everything perfect on that planter, but at the end of the year, there's something that's wrong or different with those planters that needs some adjustment.
Yeah, when you have a double, you typically count that as one ear you're going to produce, and if you have plants that come up 2 to 3 days later, they many times don't produce an ear. So that variability with the ideal situation is to have every corn plant come up exactly at the same time.
She actually did flag tests on this as well. And so she shows the number of ears that comes up on day 1, day 2, and day 3, and it shows the difference in those as well. So it's really, really good. I encourage everybody to go look at this and get you to understand how important that planter is. It's the most important piece of equipment on the farm.
And we've even seen the same thing with soybeans. The soybean plants that come up 2 and 3 days later. We did the turpidity test a year ago, and we showed that turpidity improved the uniformity every time. In other words, we got more plants up the first day compared to not using turpidity, which is part of our seed treatment package. So this is all the fine-tuning and science that goes into growing those record yields that you got to have today to pay the bills.
Little things make a big difference.
Yep. So good point. Ben, I kind of jumped over you after the yields there. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add in?
To build off to what you guys are saying, I think there's been studies done that break down from like a 12-hour increment versus the 24-hour increment of what you guys are talking about. The super high-end yields. I mean, how fast the yield potential of that corn plant drops by the hour that its neighbor is delayed or ahead of it is incredible, because you can go from like 350 bushel potential down to 250 bushel potential in a 24 or 36 hour period. So the planter is the most important thing to get the season started off right, because if you don't get it started off right, you are playing catch up and you will never get back to that point. So, and that's, it's kind of an interesting thing I was sitting there thinking about, and this is a sidebar, but we are getting phenomenal yields in northern Iowa, western Iowa, Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and all of those guys talk about how they planted in the most perfect conditions.
Yep.
They had just the right amount of soil moisture. They weren't fighting things. They went in the ground dry. They got the right amount of rain just to get the stuff started, or they didn't get the rain, but they were planted into the correct amount of moisture. I'm wondering if that's where we're seeing all of this yield come from, is they had perfect emergence. They had everything working the right direction because that plant wasn't stressed, because you can really knock yield in the first week and a half that plant is in the ground. So,
and we actually, if you go back a few Cup of Joe episodes, we interviewed a farmer dealer that said he could have used what planter, Turk, that he said he could have used and got a perfect stand this year. One of those, the ones that used to plow the opening rather than the double disc openers.
494.
Yeah, something. He said I could have used one of them this year and got a perfect stand. And you remember that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you might be hit on it that the perfect conditions at planting and getting that perfect stand, uniform stand, was the first step, even though they didn't have what I would call, they weren't blessed with rain in a lot of those areas. In fact, most of them complained it was dry all summer.
And then some of the disappointments that we've seen in yield, if we go back and look at the planting date, planted right before that cold snow that we had. What was the date of that, Joel?
It was in
May.
It was in May, yeah.
Second week of May?
Yeah, second week of May. We had snow on the ground. I took a picture of it because I said, and I think you said you planted, your family farm planted like 4 days after that because it warmed up and the way things went. So,
yep.
But if you had planted before that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and some of the disappointments we're seeing were planted in that window. So again, all of those things make a huge difference on that end result, and the people that got it done and stopped planting. We talked about stopping planting. The people that got it done and stopped planting actually, did all right as well.
I got a text last night from one of our customers near Brunswick, Missouri, and he was into some replant soybeans, which normally you're not too excited about, and he had spots hitting 70 bushel an acre. So he
replant.
Yep. So again, it's not when you plant, it's the weather after you plant.
After you plant, yep. The conditions that you plant into.
Well, great. That's good. That's a good observation, Ben. One of the things that we sometimes get a call on, and we had a couple calls this fall, was I'm looking at my Enlist soybeans, and it seems like the seed coats are browner or has a brown stripe on it. And we're going to post information about that. Soybeans have a natural ability to put some of that brown in the seed coat, and it is something that seems to be a little bit more evident in Enlist E3 soybeans on certain varieties. But it's not a trait-related thing. It's back to the genetics and environment. And so it's on the seed coat only. It doesn't affect the inside of the bean. There's never any dock on it or anything like that. But if you run into that and you look at it and say, boy, these beans look a little bit, they don't look as dirty almost, like they're dusty. And that is a characteristic of the seed coat. All genetics and all soybeans, I don't care what trait it is, if it's conventional or whatever, there are, within that variation, there's color variances within those genetics. And we want to put this up so you can look at it and understand it, but it's nothing that you need to worry about. And we are selecting away from it, but in some years we see it worse than others in certain environments. Locally here, we're not seeing it at all, but we have seen it a little bit down south and a little bit to the east. So just thought I'd bring you up to date on that.
I know one of the varieties that we had that showed a lot of that 2 years ago. Last year didn't show it hardly at all, and now this year we're seeing a little bit more of it again. But so it's very much.
We've had seed growers that have had the same bean 3 years in a row. They might even came from their own lots, and there's different levels of variability. Yep. Because of the iron and some of the natural hormones in the seed coat. Yeah,
and it's something that occurred in the first go-round of the genetics. We're selecting away from. In other words, we have two high-yielding products. We'll take the one that has the brightest seed coat because, everybody's always proud of their crop when they bring it in. They like it to look nice. And I don't even know if you know that, but seed coats can be dull and they can be shiny. I mean, the seed coats themselves have variances just in appearance. So anyhow, we will post that. You can take a look at it and understand some of these issues. Oh, one last thing. There's some information out there, hearing about that this other platform has a 4 bushel yield advantage over Enlist soybeans. Well, we first of all want to say that 4 bushel post that they're putting out there on their platform was from last year's data, 2020. Okay, it's not from current year data. Now I have some current year data, and this is from just an observation from a very good dealer that runs excellent plot programs, has a complete Asgrow lineup in it, has the Merschman lineup in it. In fact, he had two locations. Averaged up all the Asgrow lines compared to all the Merschman Enlist E3 lines, and guess what the average yield was between the 2 trait lines with all the products? They averaged 79.6, both lines. There was no difference in yield. So again, just like you've said, Ben and Turk, when you pick your soybean, it's not the trait that determines the yield, it's the variety and the characteristics. So we are not seeing any difference between trait platforms, and for anyone to make that claim, I would question it. That's just my opinion, okay? Well, that brings us to the corny jokes. And this week, because farmers have been working back in the field so hard, I think threw in a bonus one. We're going to have 3 this week to get you to next week, okay? This one here, now, I don't know if most of you may or may not know, but West Point is a German Catholic community. So, we like our Catholic jokes a little, so here we go. What do you call nuns that sleepwalk? What do you call nuns that sleepwalk? Roman Catholics. Okay?
That makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. Where do fish sleep? Where do fish sleep? On the riverbed. Okay?
We're getting better.
All right. Now this one here is a real tough one. Okay. What dog breed can jump higher than a building? What dog breed can jump higher than a building? All of them, because buildings can't jump.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Well, I can see that I didn't even get a 2.0 on this week's jokes. But anyhow, I'll try harder next week, okay? Anyhow, thanks for watching this week. We hope your harvest is going well. We hope your family is safe and healthy, and we'll see you next week. Take care.